Hi everyone, my name's Dabutor, and today I'm going to show you my new favorite strategy to take on Radagon and the Elden Beast. Radabeast is essentially two boss fights that you have to do one after the other, and they're pretty tough. After all, they are Elden Ring's final boss. A lot of people struggle with the Elden Beast fight in particular, which is made all the worse when you're weakened after the Radagon fight. So today, I'm going to show you how to consistently and easily steamroll Radagon as quickly as possible. You're watching me do it right now in the background with a no-hit Radagon fight. This strategy really is pretty quick and easy to master, and once you've learned it, you'll be able to reach Elden Beast consistently with nearly all of your flasks remaining. Once we get to Elden Beast, I'll show you how to steamroll him too, and we'll even use a secret technique to become invulnerable to Elden Stars, his most dangerous attack. If you find this guide helpful, please leave a like and consider subscribing. It really helps my channel grow. To start off, we're going to get our secret technique out of the way. So from the foot of the forge, which is right before the fire giant fight, instead of going towards the fire giant, you're going to head to the northeast. We're going to head through a valley that's guarded by trolls, and they're going to be throwing magic pots down at us. So it's important to be fast, or you can also kill the trolls, and I think they don't respawn. But either way, once you get past them, you're going to head all the way to the northeast over here, where there's a hidden path that'll take us to the Crimsonwhorl Bubbletear, which is our secret item. We're going to pass by it fast, but I want to point out there's a golden seed right there. You see it on the right side? You can go back and pause if you want to see it. There's your trolls. I think there's 3 of them, and they throw these giant magic pots at you, so be careful of them. And then once you get down here, there's a colossal hand, so you're going to want to be fast and get away from this thing, because that shit is obnoxious as hell. But once you get down here, you can just run down to this hidden path, and then this is guarded by a bunch of the small hands, so if you're on Torrent, you can easily just jump over them, but if they hit you, then they will stun lock you, and after a couple hits, they can knock you off Torrent, and you'll probably die. So be careful not to get hit by them. But either way, at the end of the path, there's a basin here, and this contains the Crimsonwhorl Bubbletear. So grab that, try not to get owned by the hands, and then there's a couple tombstones over here. I went to the wrong spot. It's more to the north over here. Yeah, so there's some tombstones here, and if you want to get away from the hands real quick, you can just drop down the tombstones, and this takes you back down to the first site of grace that you grabbed when you entered this part of the mountaintops of the giants. So we grabbed the Crimsonwhorl Bubbletear. That's our secret item, which is going to help us beat the Elden Beast. It only lasts for 15 seconds, but while it's active, every time you get hit by elemental damage, such as holy damage like what the Elden Beast does, it heals you instead of damaging you. Up next, we're heading over to the Erdtree Sanctuary, where we fought Gideon in Leyndell. You can get this item before you burn the Erdtree, but if you're fighting Radagon and the Elden Beast, then you've already burned the Erdtree, so I'm just showing it here in capital of Ash. Anyway, we're heading to the Leyndell Coliseum, so you're going to take the elevator that brought you up to Gideon in the first place, you're going to take that back down to these stairs, and then if you jump on the railing here, you can do a sprint jump across to this other balcony, and then from here, you can just follow the rampart up to the Coliseum. Alternatively, if you start at the capital of Ash site of Grace, if you head over to the giant dragon Grandsax, you can go up his wing, like how when you got onto the West Capital rampart in regular Leyndell, and you can get onto the rampart from there instead. But it's faster if you go from the Erdtree Sanctuary. Anyway, all the way on the left side of the Coliseum, we're going to grab the Starfist. After that, we're going to head to the War Master's Shack on the north end of Limgrave, and we're going to head northeast to this cliff. On this cliff, you're going to find a knight riding around on a horse. He's a Limgrave enemy, so if you're fighting Radabeast, then he should be pretty easy by this point. And when you kill him, he will drop the Golden Vow Ash of War. This is a really strong buff that's also really easy to get. It lasts, I think, for 45 seconds, and it increases your damage dealt by 11% and reduces damage received by about 8%. After that, we're going to head to the Mistwood on the east side of Limgrave. There's 2 items that we're going to grab here. The first one is at the Mistwood Ruins. When you're traveling through the Mistwood, be careful of the giant bears. Even though they're low level because they're Limgrave enemies, they're still giant bears, which are just obscenely strong in this game for no reason. But anyway, once you get to the Mistwood Ruins, there's a sleeping bear guarding the cellar. You can just run past him and run down the cellar, and obviously he's too big to follow you down here. And inside the cellar, there's a chest, which contains the Axe Talisman. This increases the damage you do with charged heavy attacks by 10%. This is really, really good on the Starfist because its charge attacks come out really fast and already do a ton of damage as it is, so this is going to make them even stronger. While we're in the Mistwood, we're also going to head over to the Minor Erdtree. At the base of this Erdtree, you're going to find a basin that contains the Spiked Crack Tier and the Green Spell Crystal Tier. We want the Spiked Crack Tier. This increases your charge attack damage by I think 15%, and that stacks with the Axe Talisman, which is going to make us even stronger. After that, we're going to head north from the Mistwood, and we're going to stop by Summonwater Village. You're going to need a Stone Sword Key to get the item we're grabbing here, so make sure you have one before you come here. Inside this cellar, in addition to the item that we're going to grab, there's also about a dozen turtles that you can farm for turtleneck meat. You can use that to craft pickled turtlenecks, which increase your stamina regen speed, in addition to the green turtle talisman that we just picked up, which also increases your stamina regen speed. I didn't end up using the pickled turtlenecks, but having that much stamina regen speed is really, really nice. Up next, we're heading over to the lake-facing cliffs in Liurnia. We're going to take a shortcut down to Stillwater Cave. So to the northeast of the Grace, there's a bunch of tombstones hanging off the cliff, and then there's more tombstones on the lower cliff, and we can use those to quickly get down to the lake and directly into Stillwater Cave. Now, as with any lethal cliff, you're going to want to be careful when you approach it, and this also applies to real life, because one little slip and you've embarrassed yourself forever. But anyway, so just jump down onto the tombstones. Depending on where you land, it might do a little bit of damage to you, but as long as you land on the highest tombstone, it won't kill you, as long as you have more than 50% health. And then it's the same thing with the next part of the cliff. There's a bunch more tombstones that are much easier to see and not die on. And if you jump down to this big tombstone here, I like to just jump directly over to this big-ass rock, and then this leads us directly down to the cave, which is right next to these jellyfish. This is a pretty short cave, and there's not much to find here, so I just run through it every time I come here. The only thing of note is the Sage set, which is the robes that Gowry at Celia wears. So if you want those, you can grab them. But the main thing we're here for is to just go to the boss. So check this out. You're going to see I drink my Physic, and you heard the healing sound when I got hit by that spell. That's what the Crimsonwhorl tier does. It makes you heal when you receive magic, fire, lightning, or holy damage. Anyway, so the boss is a clean raw knight. She should be pretty easy to kill, and she drops the winged sword insignia. This gives you an increasing damage buff based on how many hits you've landed in the past couple of seconds. There are 3 tiers to this buff, and I think for the winged sword insignia it goes up to 9%. There's also the rotten winged sword insignia and Milicent's prosthesis, which you can get from Milicent's questline. I didn't use them here because that involves going to the Haligtree, and if you want to get both of them, it involves New Game Plus, and I don't want this video to be 9 hours long. For our final talisman, we're going to head over to the Lux Ruins in the Altus Plateau. This can be found directly to the north of the Grand Lift of Dectus. There's a boss fight here before we can get this item, and it's a demi-human queen. Now, the demi-human queens are really easy. They're pretty weak. There's like one of them in the volcano cave that does a decent amount of damage. But you see how I missed that attack? Their hitboxes can be kind of hard to hit when you have Starfist, so I recommend you try to aim for their knees, like you saw I did there, and then she should go down like 4 hits. And once she's dead, go behind her, open the chest up, and grab the Ritual Sword Talisman. This increases all damage that you do by 10% when you're at max health. This is going to be good for the start of the Radagon fight because you can get a few free hits on him before he has a chance to fight back. Now there's only a couple more things to grab, so first we're going to head over to the Rotview Balcony in Caelid. Our destination right now is Fort Gale, but I want to show the Rotview Balcony shortcut in case you haven't been to Fort Gale yet and you don't feel like going through the road that's dangerous in the middle of Caelid. From the Rotview Balcony, you can actually just head directly south to Fort Gale. There's a little cliff you can jump over, and then you just gotta go down a hill, and you're right there. So here's the site of grace, and then you just head to the south towards these rocks, and you can jump up over here, and now you have a straight shot to Fort Gale. There's like one giant dog along the way, but there's a set of grace you can grab over here before he can get to you. Instead of taking the main road that has all the soldiers and stuff guarding it, I like to come around on the side over here. You can come up this cliff, and then there's like 2 soldiers here that you can run past. They do sound an alarm if they see you, but as you saw, I just ran past that guy with no problem. The only thing you need to be careful of is the knight, because he always sees you, and his rain of arrows can fuck you up, so be careful of that. But anyway, so we're going behind Fort Gale. We don't actually need to go inside, we're just coming over here. There's an item between these flame chariots, and they can fuck you up, so be careful around them. But we're going to grab the Flame Grant Me Strength spell. This increases your physical and fire damage output by 20%, and also increases your stamina regen speed. It requires 15 faith to cast. For our final item, we're heading over to the Impassable Great Bridge by Redmane Castle on the southeast end of Caelid. This is pretty close to Fort Gale, so from the fort, if you head to the east, you can just follow the road south, and then it'll take you right down here to the Impassable Great Bridge. The Site of Grace is by like a siege tower, and we're heading to the west of the Site of Grace. You're going to see there's a sword monument up here. I like to follow the cliff around it because we need to kill that scarab. If you come at it from where the scarab can see you, then it can run off the cliff towards all the enemies that are down there, and that's obnoxious to deal with. So I like to go around and push it back towards this way, away from the enemies. Anyway, when you kill it, it drops the Cragblade Ash of War. This is a buff that we're going to put on the Starfist. Cragblade lasts for 60 seconds, and it increases your physical damage by 15%, and the poise damage you do by 10%. This is going to make breaking their stances really, really easy. Before we get into the fights, I want to take a quick look at their stats. You'll see Radagon has 120 poise, and the Elden Beast has 150 poise. When we two-hand the Starfist and put Cragblade on it, our charged R2s will do about 36 poise damage per hit. That means it'll take about 4 hits to break Radagon's stance, and 5 hits to break the Elden Beast stance. That sounds like a lot, but the Starfist is fast, and they have big punish windows. It also takes a long time in between hits before their poise starts regenerating. I'll link a video down below where you can learn more about this. But the point is that you can get a few seconds in between hits if you need to back off and heal. You'll also see that they both only have 10% resistance to strike damage, which is good because that's what the Starfist does. Radagon is also weak to fire, but the Elden Beast has 40% built-in resistance, and the water in his arena increases his resistance to fire by 10%. So for the purpose of this guide, where I want to keep it simple and not have you switch between weapons, we're going to stick with a physical infused Starfist. In my case, I went with a strength build and went with the heavy infusion. Here's a quick note that I forgot to mention while I was recording the rest of this video. This run was done on New Game Plus 2 with plus 18 weapons. If you're watching this video, you're probably on New Game Plus 0 or just regular New Game, and you should have plus 25 weapons for these fights because this is the end of the game. If you need help finding smithing stones to upgrade your weapons, I strongly recommend you check out my guide about how to get all the smithing stone miners' bell bearings. So now let's go over our stats and our loadout for this fight. First of all, we're going to want to have at least 40 Vigor, preferably 60. I mentioned doing a no-hit Radagon fight at the beginning of the video, but realistically, you're probably going to get hit a few times, especially by the Elden Beast. And obviously that's perfectly fine, that's the way the game is meant to be played. So having high Vigor will give you the leeway to make more mistakes. You're also going to need 15 Faith so that you can cast Flame Grant Me Strength. In our Wondrous Physic, we're going to be using the secret weapon, which is the Crimsonwhorl Bubbletear. I'm going to talk more about the strategy behind using this, but it should be noted that you're not going to use it at the beginning of the fight when you start with Radagon, because it only lasts for 10 seconds. We're also going to be using the Spiked Cragtear. If you can get the Thorny Cragtear, which as you can see on the screen is from the Minor Erdtree in the Consecrated Snowfield, you have to kill an Erdtree avatar for that. If you can get the Thorny Cragtear, then that's better, but the Spiked Cragtear is much easier to get, and it will be just fine for our purposes. For our weapons and Ashes of War, we're going to be using any weapon with Golden Vow. I use a dagger because I just get so many of them from killing foot soldiers, and they're really light, so you don't have to worry about equip load. And then we're going to be using the Star Fist with Cragblade. Now, I have a strength build, so I went with the heavy infusion. You may want to consider using the fire infusion or flame art, depending on your build, against Radagon, but the thing is that you're not going to want that against the Elden Beast. So I would recommend switching weapons mid-fight when you transition from the Radagon fight to the Elden Beast fight, but I feel like that makes things overly complicated, so for this guide we're going with just the physical infusion. We're not using any elemental damage. Now as for our loadout, we've got the Star Fist and the dagger in one hand. In the other hand we have a Sacred Seal. You can use any Sacred Seal you want, we just need it to cast Flame Grant Me Strength. Then for our armor, you can use pretty much anything you want. I recommend getting something that has good holy negation. And if you have it, or if you can get it, I recommend at least one piece from the Briar set. I'm not going to give a full explanation here, I'll write it down in the description, but essentially it makes it easier to break their stance, and that's really helpful because that's what our strategy is about. So if you can get that, I recommend that. Then we have the Axe Talisman to increase our charge attack damage, which we'll talk about later. We've got the Ritual Sword Talisman, which increases our damage at max health. We've got the Winged Sword Insignia. If you can get it, I recommend the Rotten Winged Sword Insignia or Milicent's Prosthesis instead, because those are the same effect but stronger. And then we've got the Green Turtle Talisman to increase our stamina regen. And then finally, you're also going to want fan daggers or throwing daggers, crystal darts, any kind of fast throwing dagger. You're not going to want kukris because they're too slow, but we're going to be using fan daggers or throwing daggers or whatever to make it easier to break the Elden Beast stance, which is something that we'll talk about once we get there. Also, final note, make sure you are two-handing the Star Fist. So if you hold down Y or triangle and you hit R1 while the Star Fist is equipped, then that'll two-hand it. And so in the case of fist weapons, that means that you'll have one in each hand. And so every time we do a charged attack, you're going to hit with both hands, and that counts as 2 hits towards the Winged Sword Insignia, which is really important. So now we're going to get into the actual fight. So first we cast Golden Vow, then we cast Flame Grant Me Strength, then we switch to the Star Fist and cast Cragblade. Make sure you two-hand the Star Fist before you go into the boss room. And it's also important that you do not drink the Wondrous Physic. We're not drinking that until the Elden Beast fight. At the start of the fight, you can immediately run up to Radagon and get 2 charged R2s on him. Then you want to stop and wait for him to do an attack so you can dodge. So you see at the start, he's doing a walking animation and he can't attack you. That gives you enough time to sprint up to him and hit him with 2 charged R2s from the Star Fist. And then after that, he can do a bunch of different attacks, so you want to make sure you stop attacking and dodge. Radagon has a lot of delayed attacks like this one. You see, I panic rolled there, but fortunately I had enough time. You need to wait until his hammer starts moving forward before you actually dodge. If you dodge too early, if you dodge before he starts moving it forward, then you're going to get hit when he brings it down. And you see afterwards I have a punish window where I was able to get 2 charged R2s in, and that let me break his stance. And then so once that happens, you can hit him with a tap R2, and then I tried to go for a riposte, but I was a little too late on it. So you see here, instead of doing a charged heavy attack, I did the tap R2, so I didn't hold down R2. And I think I couldn't get the riposte because I was out of stamina, and it gave me a delay before I could attack. I don't know what the health threshold is, but once you get him down to a certain amount of health, he'll do this stomp attack, where he does a delayed stomp, and then he jumps up into the air and brings the hammer down. So here it is again. This attack doesn't have a hitbox for the leg. So you can just jump it while you're right up in his face, and as long as you get the timing right and dodge the actual ground part of the attack, the fucking explosion part of it, then you can do the jump right in his face and hit him with a jump attack there. So here it is one more time. He raises the foot up, and then right before he brings it down, right there, when you see his shoulder start to move, his left shoulder with the missing hand, once that arm starts to move, that's when you jump, and then you can hit him with a jump attack. After that, he does this follow-up where he slams the hammer down and makes an explosion. Dodging this is a bit more tricky. So again, I jump and I hit him with the jump attack on his stomp. Then he goes up into the air, and this is actually a heal window. If you need to heal, you have an opportunity to drink 1 flask here. And you see, once he starts moving down toward you, you might have to move backwards a bit like I do in order to get a good enough camera angle to be able to see him. But I'll show it again in a second. Once he starts moving down and he like swings the hammer over his head, right there, he does like a really small lunge forward and starts swinging the hammer overhead, that's when you need to dodge, and you have the opportunity to get 2 charged R2s in afterwards. Once you get him down to half health, you're going to see he can teleport away from you, and he does these slams. You're going to see in this clip I managed to get a poise break on him before he did the third one. The first 2 are really easy to dodge, so he teleports. Once you see him teleport out, you want to start moving backwards so you don't get hit when he teleports back in. But here, he brings the hammer up, and then once he starts going down, that's when you dodge. Then he's going to do a second one. There's always 3. So the second one, again, once he starts bringing it down, that's when you dodge. And you saw I was able to get a punish in while he was winding it up. And then in between the third one, there's an even longer delay, so that gives you another punish for another charged R2. And in this case, I was able to get the poise break on him. I'll talk about how to dodge the third hit there in a second. When you hit him with a riposte, there's a delay between when he starts his wake-up animation when you can hit him. If you watch his left leg, which is the one on my right, once he pulls it in and puts it underneath himself like that, that's when you can start charging up the R2 so that you'll actually hit. So I just riposted him, he's waking up, watch the leg on my right, puts his foot underneath himself, and that's when you can start charging the R2. Now that was a pretty good run of the Radagon fight. I'm going to show a few more clips from different Radagon fights that I had, and we'll talk about a few more moves that he can do so that you have a better idea of what to expect. So again, we start off by casting Golden Vow, then cast Flame Grant Me Strength, switch to the Star Fist, make sure you two-hand it, drink a blue flask, and cast Cragblade. Then you can enter the boss arena. As soon as the fight starts, you sprint up to Radagon and hit him with 2 charged R2s, and then you wait to dodge. In this case, he did a really easy attack to dodge. This one, you can get behind him. You see the ground explodes afterwards. You can get behind him and hit him with a couple more charged R2s. Once he's waking up from the riposte, foot goes under, that's when you hit. Jump the stomp, hit him with the jump attack. Once he lurches forward, that's when you need to dodge that. You get a couple more punishes in. And here I fucked up because I saw him doing the teleport, so I dodged away. So I ended up missing the riposte, but I mean, hey, it's better safe than sorry, right? But that means that when he wakes up from the poise break, he's gonna do his phase transition teleport, like that. So be careful of that. Now there's a couple things I want to talk about here. Obviously you saw I got hit. But so you might have noticed earlier I put a note saying don't throw daggers at Radagon. During this animation he can't parry, so you can throw daggers at him for a little extra damage. If you rewind this, you'll see I dodged before he started bringing the hammer forward, and so that's why I got hit here. Now you see, instead of immediately rolling to get up, I wait until the next hit comes down, and as that's coming down, I do my recovery roll to stand back up. Okay, so here's the third hit of this combo that he does. This one can be a little tricky to dodge. So you see, when he starts bringing the hammer down, I dodge and I specifically go behind him. And if you look at the ground, you'll see where the previous 2 hits had been. That explodes when the third hit comes down. So that entire area that was glowing before the third hit comes down, that is all going to be damage when he does the third hit. So I dodge behind him to make sure I'm not in any of the areas that were covered by the previous 2 hits, and at the same time also dodging the third hit. And then after that, there's a nice punish window where you can get a couple hits in, and with the damage that we're doing, it should be enough to finish him off. Here's one more version of this fight, so I run up to him, 2 charge R2s, then stop, wait to dodge. I can reaction dodge these attacks, be careful of that delay. This stomp is not part of any transition to phase 2 or anything, and his foot has a hitbox during this, so you can't jump it while you're right up in his face, you have to roll it if you're against his face. So it's not like the other stomp. Here's one of his multi-hit Goldbreaker attacks. So he brings an overhead attack with a really, really long delay. That one's really easily reaction dodged. Just dodge when he starts bringing the hammer down. And that always has a follow-up. There's this follow-up here where he does another like Goldbreaker with the holy damage. And there's also another one that I don't have a clip of here where he just swings the hammer around again. And it's a bit faster. So you have to be careful and pay attention for that delay. So now I'm about to have him at half health, so he's going to do his phase 2 transition. That's the stomp that you can dodge. So make sure you pay attention to the distinction between that one and the one I was just talking about a second ago. Now that he did that stomp, when he gets up from this riposte, he's going to do his Gold Breaker 3-hit combo and transition to phase 2. So be careful of that teleport. Dodge the first hit, really easy. Dodge the second hit. I messed that one up. And then the third hit, you want to dodge behind him so you're not in the area that was covered by the first 2 hits. Now, I don't want this video to be 19 hours long, so I'm not going to make this a comprehensive guide of every single attack he does, but those were really the main ones that I see a lot, and those are the ones that I've learned to dodge because of it. There's a few others that I don't really know how to dodge all that well because he doesn't do them that often, but that's why you should have high vigor and decent armor. And realistically, if you have your Starfist upgraded to plus 25, then you should be doing enough damage to him that it's not really going to matter all that much because you're going to kill him so fast. So when you kill Radagon, there's going to be a few seconds before it transitions to the Elden Beast fight, and there's a few things you need to do. One is make sure you're at full health, then cast Cragblade on the Starfist, that's the most important one, and then if you have time afterwards, you can cast Flame Grant Me Strength as well. When the Beast fight starts, you can sprint up to him, hit him with 2 charged R2s, and then a tap R2. He will always do his Fire Breath attack, so you can run around behind him, hit him with 2 more charged R2s, and that'll break his stance. Then get in front of him, 2 more charged R2s, and now you can hit him with a riposte, and you've already taken off a quarter or more of his health. Then during his riposte animation, you can get another charge R2 in, and I like to throw a Fan Dagger because he'll usually dodge away. When he dodges away from you, that's a good time to cast Flame Grant Me Strength if you didn't have time to do it before the start of the Beast fight. I also want to point out, you see as I'm approaching it, whenever it runs away, you don't want to let its poise health regenerate. So that's why we have the throwing daggers, because when it's at a distance from you, you throw one at it as you're approaching it, and that prevents its poise health from regenerating. Once you get it down to about 75% health, it can jump up into the air and do this Elden Ring attack. Dodging this is really easy, you just gotta jump over the ring as it's closing in towards you. We're gonna rewatch this because I want to make sure I articulate it right, but as the ring is closing in on you, you gotta jump over it. You can't dodge through it, you have to jump it, and then you have to get out of the radius of that ring on the ground, because once the first ring closes, it explodes, and anything in that area gets hit. You'll also notice that I ran straight away from the beast when it jumped up in the air, and so if you run directly away from it, then when it jumps out of the water afterwards here, it'll be right next to you. It might be a little to the side of you or like behind you, depending on your positioning, but it should be pretty consistently next to you. So we're going to go over that nuke attack it just did. You see here how I hit it, and then I'm just kind of spamming attacks, right? If I had given it a second in between attacks, just to see if the beast does anything, then I would have been able to dodge this before it hit me. So maybe take your time with your attacks some more. I ended up being able to get away from the nuke, and obviously all you gotta do is just dodge backwards a couple times, and that should take you out of the radius of the explosion. And then afterwards you get a pretty long punish window, so I hit it with Fan Daggers to make sure its poise doesn't regenerate, and then I move in for a couple more charge R2s. But yeah, so just take your time in between your hits, because you want to be able to dodge its attacks when they come out, and you're not going to be able to dodge them if you're in a recovery animation from an attack that you just did. Now it's below 50% health, so it can do Elden Stars, which is this. It grabs its sword, gets this glowing shit on its hand, and then casts Elden Stars. So that's when you want to drink the Physic. And you see, because the Crimsonwhorl tier is making me heal from elemental damage, the Elden Stars isn't doing any damage to me. Neither is this Rain of Arrows attack. I did drink it a little too early, though, so it does hit me a little bit towards the end, but I was able to avoid most of the damage from it. I'm going to replay this clip. So the main thing that makes Elden Stars shitty is not only that you really have no way of like actually dodging all of the damage, but while you're dodging Elden Stars, you also have to keep dodging the beast's attacks, like you can see. In this case, I got the Rain of Golden Arrows attack here, so there's multiple variations of this attack, and the one where it jumps up in the air, once you see it go up in the air, you need to immediately start sprinting away. Choose one direction and just go in that direction. I would have died here if it wasn't for the Crimsonwhorl tier because I dodged that so badly, but you need to just run in a straight line away from it. Here you see it doing its Sacred Blade combo, so we're going to watch this in slow motion a couple times. So you see he winds up his sword. You need to dodge it based on how far away from you he is. If he's pretty close, then you want to dodge pretty much as soon as he swipes the sword. but at most ranges you're going to need to wait for the projectile to come towards you. We'll have a couple more clips of this later on, I think, where I'll be able to show it better, because this was kind of messy with the Elden Stars and stuff. But you see, I'm dodging the projectile, not the sword swipes, for at least the first 2 attacks there. So he swings the sword, and then I dodge. Swings the sword, then I dodge. Now I'm close enough, and also take note that there's a delay on the 3rd and 4th hits. Now I'm close enough that as he starts swinging the sword, that's when I dodge. I did a panic roll here, and then I rolled again as he starts swinging the sword because I'm so close. So you might have to get used to the distance and the timing on that, but it is really easy once you get the hang of it. And of course, after that attack, there's a big punish window. You can get a couple charge R2s in. When he dodges away, make sure you hit him with fan daggers. Here he's going to do the ground version of his Golden Rain of Arrows attack. The timing on when you need to actually start sprinting is a little weird. I'll talk about that in a second. But you see here I ran in a circle to avoid it. That's the way I prefer to do it. But you can also dodge it by just sprinting in a straight line, which I'll talk about in a second. But you see, so as for when you actually need to start sprinting, I did it early here. But once the arrows stop coming out of him, right here, you see the glow stops and all the arrows have left him. That's when they're going to start coming down, and that's when you need to start sprinting. I like running in a circle to dodge this because I feel like it just feels better and looks cooler, but you might find it easier to just run directly away from him. Run in a straight line backwards away from the beast, and they should all land behind you and miss. Now, when it's below 50% health, it can do its triple Elden Rings attack, and you see how I'm throwing fan daggers at it to make sure its poise health doesn't regenerate during this time period. I think it's like 10 or 15 seconds before its poise regenerates, so hitting it with fan daggers here makes sure that it won't regenerate its poise health before you can attack it again. But anyway, so this one just has 3 rings, and it's the same thing as the other one. Just keep sprinting and jump over them. And if you run in a straight line directly away from the beast, then it'll spawn next to you once the attack is done. This explosion attack is a little counterintuitive to dodge, so instead of running backwards from the explosion, you see it does this long animation where you have a long time to react to what's happening here. Once the cloud appears, you should run toward the beast. It's counterintuitive. I ended up running more to the side here, but it's best if you run straight at the beast because the explosion is like 20 feet away from the beast. So you can get next to the beast in between it and the explosion, and that's a safe spot. And obviously, there's a really long punish window afterwards, which is really good. And you see here, I was able to dodge the nuke because I do 2 charged R2s, and then I got ready for it to do an attack, and I was able to react instead of being stuck in the middle of an attack animation. So I did the 2 R2s, and then I stopped attacking. I see it's doing this, and now I have time to roll backwards and back off and completely avoid getting hit by the attack. And then after you avoid the initial hit, you just sprint away from the nuke, and you don't get hit by it. I hit it with some fan daggers to make sure its poise didn't regenerate, and I am rewarded with a stance break. And then I could finish it off here, but I chose not to because I wanted to get more clips for this video. I'm also going to pause for a second here and just say real quick, that says New Game Plus 1, but this is a New Game Plus 2 character. Here's a picture of my save backup folder. Why am I including this? Don't ask, it's my video. Anyway, here's another cut of the Elden Beast fight. So at the start, 2 charge R2s, and then a tap R2, run around to the side of it, because it always does this fire attack, then hit it with 2 more charge R2s for the stance break, then you can get up to its weak spot, hit it with 2 more charge R2s, and then hit it with the riposte, then hit it with another charged R2, and then a fan daggers. I tried to do a second hit there, but it usually misses, which is why I tried to do the fan daggers instead. Once it runs away from you, it'll probably do its Elden Ring attack, so hit it with some fan daggers. Here I had to unlock and free aim them, but that shouldn't be too hard. Just mash X. Turn around, sprint directly away from it, and jump over the ring. And then if I had kept sprinting, it would have been next to me, but it's close enough that it's good. This version of the Nebula attack where he does like a sweep from left to right, this one like cascades toward you, so just dodging forward or backward isn't good enough. You have to run off to the side and go around it. So you see it does the sweep. I actually started sprinting off to the side, expecting it to be the one that like shoots forward in a straight line at you. And it's hard to see in the moment, but it's exploding and moving toward me. You know, it's hard to see because it's a fucking 2D screen, but it is coming toward you, so you have to run to the side to get around it. It's also a little scuzzy because while I can't see him because of the explosions happening in front of me, he's charging up his Sacred Blades attack. You see, I'm close enough here that I'm dodging the sword swipes instead of the projectiles. So I dodge 1, swipes the sword, dodge 2. Then there's a delay for the 3rd attack, so wait. Dodge on the swipe, because I'm close. And then there's another delay on the 4th attack. And I think this one's slightly longer than the one for the 3rd. And again, dodge a little late because I'm really close to him. And then after that, there's a long punish window where you can get a couple more charge R2s in. Bam. Boom. He dodges away, so I follow up with a fan dagger. This combo he does, you don't actually have to dodge the 2nd attack if you're right up next to him, but you do have to dodge the 1st and the 3rd one. It's safest if you just dodge all 3 of them, but you can pretty easily reaction dodge them. And obviously, I get the stance break, so I go in for those charge R2s and then the riposte, wake him up with another charge R2. He dodges away, so I hit him with a fan dagger. Dodge the big swipe once his head starts moving towards you. Couple more charge R2s. Now he's doing Elden Stars, so that's when we drink the Wondrous Physic. And this time I decided to keep attacking him instead of trying to run away from the Elden Stars, because I'm invulnerable to the Elden Stars. But instead he dodged away and went for the triple Elden Rings attack. You see how I let the main projectile of the Elden Stars go through me here? It has a really wide turning radius, so if you do that, then it won't really be able to come back around and hit you before it explodes. So keep that in mind. Jump over the 3 rings. Since I ran directly away from the beast, it spawns right in front of me. It does this palm smack explosion attack, and this is actually reaction dodgeable. You see, I had plenty of time to do it here. I just messed up the timing on it. It's when he starts lunging his body forward that you're supposed to roll. I had done it a little bit early. But that's one of the reasons why you shouldn't mash the attack button, because if you keep spamming attacks, then you'll be in a recovery animation and you won't be able to dodge. Here's its grab technique. Dodging this one is a little tricky. I don't really have a good cue for when I dodge this. I just kind of know the timing of it. I guess it's like you see it starts to move its body and its head there. We're going to look at that again in a second. But really, I personally know it as just dodge after a certain amount of time. I just have a feel for it. So let's look at that again. He winds his hand back for the attack. And then if you watch his torso and his head right there, it starts like lunging forward a little bit and then the hand comes afterwards. So you can probably use that as a visual cue. But really, for me, the way I have quote-unquote mastered dodging that is just by, getting a feel for the timing of it. And of course, there's a punish window afterwards, and that's a great time to get a couple charge R2s in. I got the stance break, and I can kill him, but I chose not to because we need to look at more clips. So here's a couple extra clips I had lying around. Here's his rain of arrows again. You can end with a fan dagger, and then just sprint. I like to do it in a circle. I got hit a little bit here. And then here, I'm far enough away that I have to dodge the projectiles and not the sword swipes, so we're going to look at that again. It's hard to see because of the rain of arrows here, but you'll notice, so he charges up for the first attack. You might want to rewind this once or twice. But you see, he swipes, and then I dodge as the projectile's coming at me. So like I said, it depends on the distance that you're at, but once you get the timing down for it, once you get a feel for it, it's pretty easy and really consistent to dodge. And then the fourth attack with the long delay. Dodge the sword swipe because I'm close to him. So it shouldn't be too hard to master that one. Here's another look at its 3-hit combo. So it winds up for the first swing. Really easy to reaction dodge. The second swing, if you're up against its belly, you don't have to dodge, but I recommend you do. And then the third one, just dodge again. It can be pretty hard to see when the attacks are coming because of the camera angle, but the entire body moves, and so that serves as a cue for when you should dodge. So we're about to look at it in a second when he does it again. So here's attack number 1. This one, obviously, he moves away from you, so you should be able to see it pretty well. Sword starts coming towards you. Dodge right there. Then the second one, he winds back, and then he starts coming toward you, so that's when you dodge that one. And then the third one, You see his entire body goes back and up, and then it comes down at you, so you dodge when it starts coming down. So, again, might be a little tricky the first few times you dodge it, but it shouldn't be too hard to get a feel for how that works, and of course, don't forget to take advantage of that punish window afterward. Here he starts doing Elden Stars, so that's when you want to drink your Wondrous Physic. Here's a grab, so again, I think you can dodge when the chest, the upper part of the torso, starts moving, but I'm still not super sure about that one. And then here, you're about to see the attack that always kills me, and in fact, you're about to see it kill me right here. So looking back at this footage, the reason why I died is because I didn't dodge on this fourth hit right there. So we're going to look at this in slow motion again. So I'm far enough away from him that I can easily just dodge backwards to get away from it. I think that if you're underneath him, like if you're too close to him, you have to dodge behind him, but I'm not sure about that one, so don't quote me on it. But you see here, he came down for a third hit, and then there's a fourth one. I should have dodged that probably to the side instead of backwards, and then he comes up for this fifth hit. This one, the sword drag is usually what hits me there too. And then obviously there's a fifth smash there, so when it's over his shoulder, that's when you'd want to dodge. So again, this is a 5-hit combo. Dodge attack number 1, then it's attack number 2 pretty quick, then a long delay and attack number 3, and then attack number 4 not long afterward. I tried sprinting away, I should have dodged, and it looks like I should have dodged to my left. Not in the direction of the Elden Beast dragged its sword. And then, obviously, the fifth hit shouldn't be too hard to dodge. It's just, when it comes over its shoulder. So again, at regular speed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've still got a couple more clips, so here's Elden Stars again. Just drink that physic, and it's no longer a problem. Here's the third variation of its golden rain of arrows, but it's the same thing as the ground one. Just once it stops glowing, that's when they're going to come down. And you see I dodged it by sprinting in a straight line. Here's its straight line nebula attack. You can't really see it because of the arrows, but it's coming toward me. You can be inside the cloud for about 2 seconds before it explodes, so you have plenty of time to dodge off to the side. And you see here it starts doing its fire breath attack. The way you dodge this is, again, just sprint off to the side. I was a little late because I was throwing a fan dagger there, so that's why I got hit, but I would have been fine if I had just started sprinting early. Here he did Wave of Gold, which is the Sacred Relic Sword's Ash of War. So I got hit by this, but fortunately it doesn't do that much damage. The Sword Swipe does, but the actual Wave of Gold really doesn't. So you saw I dodged a bit too early there. You should dodge a little after that glyph on the ground appears. So we're going to look at this again in slow motion. So he winds the sword back, charges it up, and then after about a second, he goes for the swing. There's your swing. And then dodge. So swing, short delay, then dodge. I did swing, then dodge. It should be swing, short delay, then dodge. You'll understand once you do it. That's the only clip I have of that attack. He also doesn't do it very often, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. But yeah, you'll just need to get a feel for it. Don't be afraid to practice and try again if you die, Here you're about to see he does the nuke again, so he winds back, I see it coming, dodge, and then just sprint away from the radius. It doesn't have a very big radius, so you can sprint away pretty easily. And it wouldn't feel right to end this video without killing the beast. So here's me killing the beast, and there you have it. Here's another quick look at the loadout and our stats. Again, I'm only using plus 18 Starfist. You should have yours at plus 24 or plus 25. So you should be doing way more damage, especially since I'm also in New Game plus 2, which means the enemies have significantly more health than they did in New Game 0. Anyway, with all of that said, I hope you found that helpful. If you did, please leave a like and consider subscribing. Leave any questions or feedback you have in the comment section down below, and I'll catch you later.